I woke up at 6:12 a.m. to the sound of diesel engines on my land. Not on the road, not near the gate. On my land. By 6:15, I was standing on my porch watching 3 trucks, a trailer, and the HOA president walking across my pasture like she owned it. By 6:20, she was staring at the legal firearm in my hands and realizing she had made a very serious mistake. Let me explain. First off, yes, I know how this sounds, a farm, inside an HOA. But here's the truth. My 12-acre family farm has been here for 40 years. The subdivision? Built around me 8 years ago. When the developer bought the surrounding land, my property was specifically excluded. Different parcel number, different zoning, different everything. I am not part of the HOA, never signed anything, never agreed to covenants, never paid dues. Important detail. Very important. Her name was Linda. Perfect landscaping, perfect posture, perfect belief that she controlled everything within visible range. For 2 years, we coexisted peacefully. My barn sat at the edge of the new neighborhood. My fence line was clearly marked. My livestock stayed on my side. No issues. Until property values started rising. About 6 months ago, I received a friendly letter. Not from the county, not from zoning, from the HOA. It said my barn roof was visually disruptive and requested I repaint it in an approved color palette. I ignored it, because again, I'm not in the HOA. A week later, Linda knocked on my door. "You need to comply," she said. "I don't," I replied calmly. She smiled the kind of smile that isn't friendly. "We'll see." 2 weeks later, I received an invoice. $450. Non-compliance with community aesthetic standards. I almost framed it. Instead, I sent back a certified letter with a copy of my deed and a simple note. Not a member. Cease correspondence. That should have been the end. It wasn't. Fast forward to that 6:12 a.m. morning. I look out the window. 3 landscaping trucks are inside my outer gate. Inside. My gate was unlocked because I was expecting a feed delivery later that morning. They were unloading equipment, measuring stakes, bright orange flags, and a trailer with what looked like fencing panels. My stomach dropped. I didn't run, I didn't yell, I walked, slow, steady. Because when you live rural, you learn something. You don't escalate. You assess. Halfway down the gravel drive, Linda spotted me. She waved, like we were discussing a garden project. "We're extending the community perimeter fence," she announced proudly. "You're on my property," I replied. This land was designated as future annexation space. No, it wasn't. She held up a laminated neighborhood map. Not a county plat, not a deed record, a marketing map, with my pasture shaded light green, labeled Phase 3 Expansion. I almost laughed. Here's the part that matters. One of the contractors had already begun pulling old fence posts near my boundary. My actual legal boundary. That's when I raised my voice for the first time. "Stop." Everything froze. Contractor, workers, Linda. I calmly informed them they were trespassing and needed to leave immediately. Linda crossed her arms. "This will increase property values for everyone." "I'm not everyone." Now let's be clear. I live on a farm. Predators exist, coyotes, feral dogs. I carry legally on my own land, openly, lawfully. And at that moment, when strangers were dismantling fencing on my property, I placed my hand visibly on my holstered firearm. Did I point it? No. Did I threaten? No. I simply made something very clear without raising my voice. This is private property, and I will protect it. The entire energy shifted instantly. Contractors stepped back. One of them muttered, "We weren't told this was private." Because they weren't. For the first time since I'd known her, Linda looked unsure. "This is HOA-approved development," she insisted. But her voice had changed. "Show me the recorded easement," I replied. Silence. "Show me the county annexation filing." More silence. Because there wasn't one. I didn't escalate. I dialed the non-emergency sheriff's line, put it on speaker, explained calmly. Multiple individuals are on my deeded property attempting structural alteration without permission. The dispatcher asked if they were still present. Yes. Linda's confidence evaporated, because now this wasn't about aesthetics. It was about trespass. 2 deputies arrived within 20 minutes. They walked the boundary markers, reviewed my deed on my phone, asked Linda for documentation. She handed them the laminated HOA map. The deputy looked at it, then looked at her. This isn't a legal property document. That sentence hit harder than anything I could have said. The contractors packed up quickly. No argument, no drama, just awkward silence and reversing trucks. Linda stayed, trying to explain future integration plans. The deputy responded simply, "Ma'am, you can't seize land because it fits your long-term vision." And that was that, or so I thought. After the deputies left, the trucks cleared out, fence panels reloaded, orange stakes removed, gate shut behind them. I figured that was the end of it. Embarrassing morning for Linda? Contractors probably annoyed. Lesson learned. I was wrong. Because when control slips from people like that, they don't back down. They escalate. 3 days later, I received a certified envelope from a law firm. Not a small one, a thick one. Inside was a formal notice stating that the HOA intended to pursue legal clarification of boundary ambiguity and was filing for adverse possession consideration. I had to read that twice. Adverse possession. On land that's been in my family for 4 decades. Actively maintained, fenced, taxed, occupied. It wasn't just wrong, it was delusional. For anyone unfamiliar, adverse possession requires open, continuous, hostile occupation of land for a statutory period. Translation? You don't get to show up with landscaping trucks one morning and suddenly own 12 acres. But here's the dangerous part. Even ridiculous legal claims cost money to defend. And I realized something. This wasn't about actually winning land. It was about pressuring me into negotiating. A week later, Linda requested mediation. Not through deputies this time, through lawyers. The proposal? They would compensate me for 2 acres along my eastern boundary. Compensate. Below market value. In exchange for voluntary annexation into the HOA, which meant HOA dues, architectural control, livestock restrictions, future development limitations. They didn't want my land. They wanted control of the edge, because my pasture backed up to their most expensive homes, and a farmhouse with livestock didn't match their marketing brochure. Their attorney tried a softer tone. Litigation can be expensive? I agree, I replied. That's why I won't be starting any. Silence on the line. Because here's what they miscalculated. I wasn't bluffing. I had already contacted a property attorney the day I received that letter, and he was amused. Within 48 hours, my attorney pulled original plat maps, developer filings, recorded exclusion documents, tax parcel history, zoning confirmations. It wasn't ambiguous. It wasn't gray. It was crystal clear. The developer had specifically carved my farm out of HOA jurisdiction to close their financing deal years ago. There was even written correspondence acknowledging it, which meant Linda wasn't just mistaken. She was ignoring history. Instead of waiting for their next filing, my attorney sent something first, a formal cease and desist, followed by a notice of intent to pursue damages for trespass, attempted property interference, contractor inducement without authority, legal harassment. Suddenly the tone changed again, because defending a bad claim is one thing. Defending a countersuit, that's different. Here's something important. Linda wasn't acting alone in theory, but she was acting alone in execution. Once the other board members saw the potential exposure, especially the legal fees piling up, they panicked. I later learned through a neighbor that the board had never voted to pursue adverse possession. They had only discussed expansion possibilities. Linda filed the paperwork independently. That's when internal emails started surfacing. And trust me, board members don't like surprise lawsuits. HOA legal counsel sent the board an estimate. If this went to court and they lost, they could be responsible for my legal fees, court costs, damages for trespass, possible punitive penalties, 6 figures, easily. That number spread through the subdivision like wildfire, because unlike the board, the homeowners actually read their budgets. 2 weeks after the mediation attempt failed, something strange happened. Another contractor truck appeared near my boundary. This time they didn't enter. They just parked on the HOA side and started measuring. I walked down calmly again, this time without even touching my holster. "Anything I should know about?" I asked. The contractor shook his head. "We were told to evaluate alignment." "For what?" He hesitated, then said something interesting. "We're not touching your land. That's what the deputy told us last time." That message had clearly circulated. Good. Apparently, homeowners began demanding answers. Why was the HOA trying to seize farmland? Why were legal fees increasing? Why were dues potentially going up? Linda tried to frame it as future value protection, but one homeowner reportedly asked, "Value protection from what? Chickens?" That meeting didn't end well for her. A week later, my attorney received an official withdrawal notice. The HOA was rescinding its adverse possession inquiry. No annexation pursuit, no boundary claim, no further action. In legal language, it was neat and tidy. In reality, it was surrender. But here's the twist. They weren't done paying for the mistake. Not yet. When the HOA officially withdrew their claim, I figured everyone would quietly move on. No headlines, no lawsuits, no dramatic courtroom scenes. But neighborhoods don't forget near disasters, especially expensive ones, because once the legal invoices started circulating internally, homeowners realized something uncomfortable. They had come within inches of funding a 6-figure lawsuit over land they never owned. Through a neighbor who sat on the finance committee, I learned the numbers. Just the initial filings and consultations had already cost the HOA nearly $18,000, and that was before court proceedings. If my attorney hadn't responded quickly and aggressively, those numbers would have multiplied fast. And guess who would have paid? Every homeowner, through increased dues, all because of one person's obsession with future expansion. An emergency HOA meeting was called. Not about landscaping, not about aesthetics, about liability. This time, Linda didn't control the room. Homeowners showed up in numbers. Voices weren't angry. They were sharp, focused. One question kept coming up. Did we vote to pursue this? The answer was no. Linda had consulted legal counsel without full board authorization, filed exploratory paperwork independently, pushed contractors onto land she didn't own, and when the sheriff intervened, she doubled down. That combination? It's career-ending in HOA politics. A motion was introduced. Immediate suspension of presidential authority pending review. Passed. Then another, formal vote of removal. It wasn't unanimous, but it wasn't close either. Linda tried to defend herself. "I was protecting property values." A homeowner replied, "You almost destroyed them." And that was it. Position gone. Power gone. All in under 10 minutes. Now here's where people expected me to escalate. Sue for damages, pursue trespass penalties, make an example out of her. I didn't. Instead, I did something simpler. I replaced my outer fence. But not just replaced it. I upgraded it. Stronger posts, clear boundary markers, fresh survey stakes, visible signage reading, private property, no HOA jurisdiction. Not aggressive, just clear. Because clarity prevents conflict better than confrontation. About a month later, I saw Linda at the local hardware store. No clipboard, no authority. Just another resident. She looked tired, not defeated, just humbled. She didn't apologize directly, but she said something that stuck with me. "I thought if we didn't expand, the neighborhood would lose value." I replied calmly, "Value doesn't come from control. It comes from respect." She nodded. That was the closest thing to closure either of us needed. So here's the part that made me question myself. When the contractors first started pulling fence posts that morning, I put my hand on my holstered firearm, didn't draw it, didn't threaten, didn't escalate, but I made it visible. Some people would say that was too much. Others would say it was necessary. Here's my perspective. When strangers are dismantling fencing on your legally deeded land, after ignoring certified letters, after sending invoices, after attempting to annex property without permission, you don't whisper. You establish boundaries, calmly, legally, clearly. And that's exactly what I did. Life returned to normal. Cattle grazing, feed deliveries on schedule, subdivision kids occasionally waving from their sidewalks. The HOA still exists. They still enforce mailbox colors and lawn height. But they don't send letters to my barn anymore. And they definitely don't bring trucks past my gate. This story wasn't about firearms. It wasn't about fear. It was about assumption. Linda assumed my land was negotiable. My silence meant compliance. Her title meant authority. But land records don't care about titles, and the county doesn't recognize marketing maps. Boundaries aren't opinions. They're documented facts. Now when I stand on my porch at sunrise, looking across those 12 acres my family worked for decades to keep, I don't feel victorious. I feel steady. Because sometimes protecting what's yours doesn't require shouting. It requires paperwork, patience, and the willingness to stand firm when someone tries to redraw your lines. So, AITA for standing my ground? You tell me. Subscribe my channel for more HOA interesting videos.